This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
So anyone using the Truecaller app is, in essence, giving away not just their data, but everyone else's.
Wow, that's a big reveal, no? And if you're shocked, here's more.
They have a format for taking other people's data and using it to make money off adverts.
Now we can sense you're getting damn bugged too.
So they're using someone's personal data to earn revenue that the odds are 90+% they don't have consent for. A smartphone generally has a spam filter anyway. It doesn't leak all your data all over the web like Truecallers did and deny it. It doesn't invasively coerce you into giving away other people's data, which is more important.
And that's why last week, Swedish headquartered Truecaller, that is famous for its caller and spam identification app, came under a fierce short-selling attack from activist firm Viceroy Research, that's famous for their role in taking down fintech giant Wirecard in Europe, or taking on Sofina and Byju's, or for that matter, even Tesla. In a two-part report, Viceroy tore apart Truecaller's business model, which it believes is on the brink of redundancy, and alleged the company is indulging in tax frauds and, most importantly, breaching privacy protocols of its users, making children to vulnerable members of society even more vulnerable to digital bullying, data and identity theft. The stock tanked after the report came out, closing at an all-time low on Friday, just a week short of its first anniversary of its October 2021 IPO. As on the last trading session, the Truecaller stock is down 28% below its IPO price. You're listening to the dark truths about Truecaller on the Morning Brief. It's October 4th. From the Economic Times, I'm Arijit Barman. In this episode, we speak to the founder of Viceroy Research to understand why he thinks Truecaller is twisted. We also got in touch with the company, but they declined to participate in this episode. Joining us all the way from UK, Fraser Perring, founder, Viceroy Research. Welcome to the Economic Times podcast, The Morning Brief. I want to understand, what does activist short seller mean? Are you an activist first, short seller second?
That's a good question. I've never actually broken it into two because they sort of go hand in hand. You ask, how do we find these companies? Normally it's a tip or us just looking, they're too good to be true, the best, the biggest, you've heard it all. Yeah. But so once we've identified a company, and it's the company that choose us by their conduct. Fraudulent and malfeasant companies and dodgy companies, if you want to put them, they pick us because they're the ones doing it. We just expose it. That's our activism. And how we pay for that is we short the stock.
Okay, time out. I'm sure right now you're wondering, what is short selling all about? So before we proceed, here is a quick tutorial.
Shorting, also known as short selling, is a trading strategy where an investor sells a security today and buys it back in the future, hoping that the price of the security will go down. It's effectively the opposite approach to a traditional long position, where investors buy today and sell at some point in the future to cash in, hopefully after the price has gone up. It follows the same buy low, sell high mentality as long investing, but it just reverses the order of the motto. So investors sell high today and hope that the price will go down so they can buy low in the future. Now, shorting a stock is a bit more complicated than going long on a position. So let's go through a running example to explain how the strategy works and the risks it poses. Imagine you have two investors who decide to take opposite positions in Plain Bagel Co. The company's stock currently has a market price of $10. Investor A decides to buy 1,000 of these stocks, thereby investing $10,000, while investor B decides to short 1,000 stocks, thereby selling $10,000 worth of the investment. Now I know what you're thinking. How the hell do you sell a stock that you don't own? Well, oftentimes the process involves selling a borrowed security. For example, in a brokerage account, you can often sell a position by borrowing a stock from your broker and then shorting that way, leaving you with the proceeds from the sale. The money you make from the sale obviously doesn't really belong to you since you sold someone else's stock to get it, but eventually, when you buy the security back, known as covering your short, you'll be able to return the stock and keep whatever money is left over, which is how you profit from the trade.
Now you get the picture, but as you just heard, short selling is only for the sophisticated investor. So as they say, don't try this at home or without expert advice. Now let's dial right back into Truecaller.
So we've got a very high level of evidence to the point where I would say it's on par with journalism, if not higher at times. Yeah, because we have to show our sources.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't. You can say anonymous. Whereas we have to validate it.
But Truecaller might not let us keep our sources anonymous if it continues. So that gives me a cue to ask you the world of Truecaller, and you've been exposing them in a series of reports. Why choose Truecaller in the first place?
So someone said to us, have you seen this app? You're on it, but not my corporate number, my personal number that maybe 20 people have. It's a different name because I want a personal life. And and I'm like, nah, get lost. Only my closest friends know this number. Nope, it's on the app. Factually on the app. I haven't consented to it because I don't want anyone else knowing it. But it's on the app. I'm on the app and loads of people are. And I was like, this can't be right. I haven't given them permission. I know you can go and find my email address online. Yeah, but everyone can work out my email address. They can maybe work out my corporate number, but not my personal stuff that I haven't given consent to. I started looking at it. And they're playing this game. So they were told off when GDPR came in. So they moved everything to India. A Swedish company with 60% of their employees in India. Sounds like an Indian company with 40% of its employees in Sweden.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it factually, I think the Reserve Bank of India and the tax office, they might say that legally they're allowed to do this arm's length type billing. Yeah. And no, I don't think so. The market doesn't think so. And so first of all, you've got the accounting side. It stinks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Truecaller India has never made any money.
Yeah.
And they justify it on a transfer pricing model that's normally used for engineering or products. Yeah. And the Indian government have already set precedent with a technology company where they shouldn't be billing in Sweden like that. It should be on a commission structure with tax.
Correct.
Right? So that's the first part. Second part was, so we got the accounting side. That's a tick box. We're sort of excited. That means the margins are screwed by a further 10, 15, 20%. Yeah? As a liability, that's a minimum of 65 million just for Truecaller on a basic of last year's revenue. So then you start looking at what the app does. And a smartphone generally has a spam filter anyway. It's maybe not as good. Truecaller argue this, that, and the other. But it doesn't steal all your data and give it to crooks and spammers and God knows what and make you vulnerable. It doesn't leak all your data all over the web like Truecallers did and deny it. It doesn't invasively coerce you into giving away other people's data, which is more important. You're in my phone book, but I don't have consent to give your information to a company, right? And I'm betting 99% of all the people that didn't download the app, haven't given their consent either.
Yeah.
But the ones that have downloaded the app didn't have my consent to store my data. And I'm just one. So anyone using the Truecaller app is, in essence, giving away not just their data, but everyone else's. And not only that, they're enabling people to be targeted because we've shown that you can reverse search it and we've filmed it. So Truecaller, if they're listening to this, let's see if they can state publicly that I can't target people off their app.
Yeah.
We haven't targeted them, but we've been able to get the information that would enable us to, because we don't want to make people vulnerable. And Truecaller and maybe other apps out there do the same, but they shouldn't be in existence. The Indian government needs to step up and bring in this TRI law that's coming in about AML and KYC.
Correct. Because Truecaller has been around and been very successful for a while now. So why in 2022 is Fraser waking up and,
We heard the name, I think, 11 months ago. I could be wrong. It doesn't matter when we heard it. It was before today. The level of research that we're seeing is that we're so tech reliant. If you don't speak out about these things, we're going to have nothing left. The location monitoring and the access to SMS and things like that, it's heinous.
Correct.
So why now? It needs to be spoken about because the world is getting so tech, so much on tech. We don't know what we're giving away now.
Correct. And what kind of method research went into all of this? If you could talk a bit about the whole investigation.
So first of all, we downloaded and reviewed all the local company accounts for Truecaller services or whatever it is in India.
Correct.
Second part was interviews with former employees that had left 12, 18 months ago, and their personal views on what the company is, how it is, and what they're doing. And they confirmed our thesis. They confirmed that most people don't have permission and the company knows it. And then pre-IPO, obviously, when you want to, initial public offering that is, when you want to list a company, you want to present the best accounts possible. So they changed the system, the software, so that on every call you got an advert. Amazingly, they got a revenue bump. It was only meant to be on people that weren't in your contacts. But it makes the company look better. But that's a one-time bump. The reality is that they have a format for taking other people's data and using it to make money off adverts.
Correct.
So they're using someone's personal data to earn revenue that the odds are 90+% they don't have consent for.
Correct. So the nub of the issue, according to you, is the breach of privacy. That's number one. And then comes the tax issue.
Yeah, tax issue, definitely. But they're catch-22. Are they Indian or Swedish? Let's let the Indian authorities that woke up thanks to your reporting on it overnight. Yeah. So they're definitely aware of it now. And even their auditor raises the issue about the problems with revenue and how it's recognized. Yeah, it's called an emphasis of matter. It's in the auditor's opinion. But Truecaller in Sweden hasn't disclosed that to their investors. Why not? Well, we know why not, because it's a risk. And you don't want to tell investors too many risks because they don't want to buy it.
But don't they have to qualify that in the audit
report?
Not
in the top co, as long as it's nowhere that we've found.
Okay.
And it's definitely not been spoken about from. So we've interviewed investors. What do you know about the company? Oh, it's a great company. Biggest in India, this, that, and the other. Yeah. So they deny the company is a permanent or persistent denier, what you could call a liar. So every data breach, no, we haven't been breached. They have, and they know it, and they persistently.
So you're saying that Truecaller has been hacked and their data has been stolen?
Yeah, 100%. Not their data, everyone else's data.
I mean, everyone else's data. I mean, their data bank.
They didn't have the right to own it in the first place, in my opinion.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Okay.
Because I didn't consent. So if they're going to say I'm a liar, they won't know the number that I found on their database. And we've also got other people that shouldn't be on the database. We've got very vulnerable people that shouldn't be on the database. If Truecaller want to argue the toss and they go to court in India to try and cover this up again, like other companies have, I'm motivated. But I'm going to take a video into the court and I'm going to ask for a criminal prosecution on the basis that they're making people vulnerable.
Now, to give them some credit, many would argue the Truecaller did offer a solution that was a solution from pesky callers, whether someone's selling you insurance, whether someone's selling you bank loans, car loans, mortgage, something else. So it was a filter that did have some benefits, and which is why people started using it.
Please note that's a filter. So if you designated it spam, banking calls, loans, aggressive selling, marketing, but it doesn't need all your data, all my data and everyone else's data to manage that. Yeah, in a way, and they argue, yes, it does, so that they can filter which one's spam. It doesn't need to take without consent, which is stealing data of people other than the app user. So they can mark, or if everyone marks which one's a spam, and things like that, then the herd is protected.
Yeah.
But you do not need all your data, right, in a database run by a company that's saying it's there to protect you, when you can change the purpose of that app to target people. It hasn't specifically downloaded all your contacts so that they know which person to pretend to be, or and it's a phone book, but it's a public phone book. An enhanced search, if this was factually lawful, why did Truecaller, 12 hours after the publication of our first report, remove enhanced search off their sign-in page?
Yeah.
Now,
true.
If you were legit, you'd say, hang on, we use this so that it improves our algo at filtering out fraud and spam. But they've removed it, which is an admission. But they didn't come out and say, hey, we were wrong, because companies can do that now. They can't admit they're wrong. We're brought up as kids, and anyone listening to this, you raise your kids to apologize. But companies can't now.
So here's a very basic question that I have. Yes, from my phone book, your phone book, and we are all users of Truecaller, they've collated and have created a mega address book of millions of users.
Yeah.
Point taken. How can a third party access that? Only through theft, right?
No, they can search it through the website, the app. Okay, they limit the number of searches, but if you're a scammer, there's ways to legally circumvent, please note, the restrictions in the app.
Correct. So you're saying that if you download the app, the global mega phone book is actually accessible, and you can get details of strangers and you can zero in on them if you want.
And we did it and recorded it.
Okay. You've also made you touched upon it, but you've made a very serious allegation. You've said tax fraud or evading taxes in India. That's very serious.
Remember, they brag of being the biggest Truecaller. So go and download their own accounts. Don't take our word for it. Viceroy's is always believe your own eyes, not your ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So don't take our word for it. Download the app and give them all your contacts. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. But you go and download their accounts. Look at the emphasis of matter that they have in the localized accounts. Look at how the Indian element of Truecaller never makes money. Look at how they justify it as advertising from Sweden, but it's all Indian companies, and yet most of the company is in India. But they want to be European from a tax perspective, but they want to be Indian from a data compliance perspective. So which do they want to be? And if I said to you that hi, I'm Viceroy, and 60% of my workforce are in India and 40 in Sweden. We've alluded to this.
Yeah.
I'm actually Indian, aren't I, really?
Yeah.
What loophole are Truecaller using? With 60% of their workforce, 79% of their revenue comes from India. Go and look at other companies with the same and ask me if they're Indian.
Right. Exploiting loopholes is what many big tech companies do. In fact, President Obama really went after Apple and Amazon and said you should pay taxes or higher taxes in US because your jurisdiction or domiciled in Ireland or other tax friendly jurisdictions, and this is not kosher. So this is a problem not just for Truecaller, but for others as well in the big tech space.
It's not necessarily a problem for the big tech because they can argue jurisdictionally they have a small percentage of their employees there per the revenue. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's a test. So you've got materiality, which at 79%, let's call it 80%, of revs. Even at 60, it's still material. Yeah.
Correct.
And you've got 60% of your employees there and you pay zero tax, but are allegedly India's most successful app. Everything they describe, India, Truecaller, India, this, but when it comes to accounting, Sweden, yeah.
Correct.
The tax man ain't fooled.
Yeah.
And the tax man ain't stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the simple crux of it. On top of all the data issues,
correct,
they've got a tax liability. Yes. Analysts are ranging it between 65 and 150 million as a risk. Yeah.
Wow. Now, Truecaller, or the success of Truecaller, has spawned quite a few Me Too's. In fact, my producer, Sumit, gave me a long list of, operators or software companies and similar sounding or different sounding, but basically doing the same. Are there replicas of Truecaller, or there are tweaks and they don't really take your data away and make it public, et cetera, et cetera?
Some factually don't, and we won't split hairs on who's who.
Okay.
But some factually don't. They may haul your data away, but it's not displayed in a way as such to identify you. Yeah.
Okay.
The worst part is that 84% of adolescent teenagers all have smartphones.
Yeah.
Now, if their data, it isn't differentiated between the adult data. That's not legal.
Yeah.
What's also not legal is it doesn't matter even if the child gave consent, because consent under 18 doesn't stand in law.
In India, yes. But does it stand in law anywhere else in the world?
It makes no difference. It's where your foot is. It doesn't in Sweden either. And that brings us down to the GDPR issue.
Yes.
If you have offices in the EU, you have to treat all data according to GDPR. They say, no, because most of it's India. Their head office is Sweden. So they pay taxes in Sweden, but they want to be treated as Indian, make their minds up, but no one's fooled now. And that's where you're getting to the point where consent's a major issue.
Correct.
And
The problem is it's taking far too long. The privacy or the data bill is taking far too long, and it's getting, debated till kingdom comes. So hopefully we are going to see some resolution or some clarity very soon.
Well, there's a way that you can speed things up with politicians, and that show that they're vulnerable. So as soon as it impacts a politician, all of a sudden they're motivated.
That's true.
They need to regulate, and they can simply do it by IDing. Everyone's, getting to the point of IDs on your phone.
No, but even if politicians aren't motivated enough, Google or the Android, the iOS, or OEMs, which are the phone companies, the Chinese companies or Samsung's or the Apple, they themselves are building mechanisms in the phone that will or is already making Truecaller redundant.
Yeah, without making people vulnerable either. And with consent. Yeah, and they're saying, well, they have access to all the contacts, but they don't give them to everyone else.
Correct.
Right? So Truecaller, whoever hasn't consented to their data is legally obliged to delete it. And it's contrary to the Google privacy laws within Google Play.
Yeah.
And rest assured, we've had dialogue with Google, but they circumvent that by saying, download it off the app, log in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they don't have to comply with the regs. And it's a, shall we call it, loophole to get round it. And it's bull crap.
Correct. Now, several countries have already banned TC, Truecaller. You expect more to follow?
Or regulate it better.
Yeah. We're running out of time, but I just want to ask you just one question, which is, you have OTTs or over-the-top players like WhatsApp.
Yeah.
WhatsApp also has access to my data, my phone book. Why is Truecaller potentially more dangerous or potent than, say, a WhatsApp?
Can I search your WhatsApp?
No, you can't.
Says it all. Does your WhatsApp give consent to access your contacts, but to not use them publicly?
Yeah.
Complies with the law.
Yeah.
That's simple.
My take. There are several problems with the way Truecaller, backed by venture capital firm Sequoia, functions these days. First, the operational issue. The advertising and subscription revenue collected from clients in India is not technically billed by the Indian arm of the company, which is perennially in loss, but rather directly to True Software Scandinavia AB, also a subsidiary of the listed Truecaller AB. Some of this overall revenue is then redistributed to the local company and recognized as service income, much like in the case of a low-risk bearing entity that only exists to provide support service to the parent. But here's the catch. India is not a support hub. It's the core of Truecaller's business and contributes a lion's share of revenue and staff that actually work within the country's jurisdiction. So, logically, it should pay tax here, right? Isn't that also the nub of the issue against the Chinese phone companies after whom our investigative agencies like ED is going after? But the bigger issue here is privacy, and that is why several countries across the globe have either banned it or are building guardrails around Truecaller or several of its Me Too apps that have mushroomed in recent years. There have been instances of alleged privacy breaches as well. In one case, personal details of 47.5 million Indians supposedly found their way into the dark web in 2020. The company, of course, denied any breach. In the same year, the Indian Army banned its personnel from using Truecaller 3 years after flagging it as spyware. Forget the army for a second. Won't you be pissed off if you learn your phone book is accessible to all and sundry?
About the data breach happening, I had no idea. And if at all this is true, I would stop using Truecaller at this very moment because I don't want my privacy to be breached.
No, I would definitely not use Truecaller if I knew that all my data was with them. I'll uninstall Truecaller.
I don't think that I would be using the application any longer.
I think almost every online platform or application uses our data to some extent, and it might be out there. So I'm just desensitized to the entire subject matter of data breach.
Last month, Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw announced that as part of the upcoming Telecom Bill of 2022, the identity of all callers will become visible to users. But just like the data protection bill, these reforms have been lingering far too long. It's time to speed dial these important legislations. You've been listening to the dark truths about Truecaller on the Morning Brief with me, Arijit Barman. Producer for the episode, Sumit Pandey. Sound editor, Indranil Bhattacharjee. Executive producers, Anupriya Bahadur and yours truly. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursdays and Friday. We hope you like this episode. Do share it on your social media networks. The Morning Brief is now streaming on Amazon Prime Music and JioSaavn, apart from Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts. And of course, ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Do tune in and listen to all our audio content and have a great week ahead. All clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits mentioned in the description.